Hello everyone, and welcome to the introduction of the UE4 Editor video series. In this video, we'll be talking about the content browser inside the Unreal Editor and break down the interface as well as the core functionality of the content browser itself. So first of all, we have our project that we've been working out of here. We have the overview project with starter content enabled, and down at the very bottom, you will notice the content browser. By default, this is the default location for the content browser in the lower portion of your screen. And the content browser itself stores all your externally created assets, as well as any special assets that you may have created inside the editor, such as materials or blueprints, particle effects, things of this nature created inside Unreal Editor. Again, it's located at the bottom of the screen. And if for some reason you lose the content browser, say for example you closed it and you don't have a content browser, you can re-enable it by going to the main toolbar at the top and clicking the content button. And you'll see it will pop it back in its default location. You can also press Control, Shift, and F to reopen the content browser as well. So the content browser itself is pretty much all about dragging, dropping the placeable assets for your game. And when we say assets, we mean things like static meshes, for example, like these tables and chairs that you see here, as well as materials and particle effects and blueprints, things of that nature that can be dragged and dropped into your level. So for example, we have our tables and our chairs. I could go into the starter content folder and under props and just drag another chair into our scene here. I can press E and rotate it. And now we have a table for 3. Essentially. We could also go in and find some materials. If I look under the materials folder, I can just drag a material onto a surface inside our level here and create a brick floor for our table and chairs. So there you go. It's pretty much just dragging and dropping assets into your level viewport here. The other important thing that the content browser does is allow you to import your externally created content, such as any static meshes or textures that you create in a 3D Studio, 3D modeling package or image editor, allowing you to import those into the editor as well. And you can do that by clicking the import button, which will take you through the process of importing those assets. We won't go through that together here, but you can find that documentation as well online. Another method that you could use to import your content is through the auto method. So if I browse to the location of my actual project on my disk, which I have in a separate window here that I'll drag in really quickly, you can see we have our overview project here, and the name of our project is overview. So if I open it up, you can see we have some folders in here, but one particular one of importance is the content folder. So if I double click to open that up, you can see there's our starter content folder. If I open that, and here's all of our starter content folder assets. So you can see the directory structure is exactly the same as it appears in the content browser. So if I were to open props and bring back up my window again and open props in here, you can see all of our U assets pertaining to these static meshes that appear in the content browser are also in our directory structure on disk. Now the benefit of using the directory structure on disk is if you build something in, say, 3D Studio Max or Maya, and you save out your mesh from one of those programs into your project's directory, it will automatically import that asset into Unreal Engine 4. It will take you through the process of importing it, but it will automatically detect that something has been added to your project and walk you through the process of importing it into your project. Now, if you don't have the Unreal Editor open and you save something to your project's directory structure, the next time that you start the editor, you will be prompted to import those assets, as the project will detect that something new has been added, and you can begin that process of importing those assets. That said, that is one of the more major features of the content browser, is getting your assets into the game, or into the editor, excuse me. Another important asset is the ability to edit assets once they have been imported. So for example, we have our tables and chairs here. These are all static meshes. Inside the content browser, I can double click on one of them and it will open it up in a sub-editor, which will allow me to make modifications to that asset. So here we've opened up a static mesh. Now we can make modifications using the static mesh editor. I can assign a default materials, change collision, etc. We won't go through this together, but you can see Double-clicking on an asset in the content browser will open it up in a sub-editor inside Unreal Engine 4. So for example, blueprints, I can open up this blueprint, and here is the blueprint editor. So you could do this for materials and edit a material. You could do this for particle effects and open up Cascade, etc. So those are the major features of the content browser. Dragging and dropping assets into your level, like this light, blueprint light that came with starter content. Dragging in materials and changing the materials in your levels. Let's drag that one in. That's pretty. And also opening up the assets inside the editor in a sub-editor so that you can make modifications to the assets themselves. Okay, with that, you should have the basic understanding of how the content browser works. Next up, we'll take a closer look at the interface itself and show you some tips and tricks to helping you navigate the content browser and find exactly what it is you're looking for. So to do this, let's just start up in the upper left-hand corner here of the content browser. Let me move this over just a little bit. There we go. So in the upper left-hand corner, we have this big green Add New button. If we go ahead and click that, you can see we have the opportunity to add basic assets that can be created inside the editor. These are things like new blueprints, new levels, materials, particle effects, as well as some advanced things that you can kind of scroll through and see that you can create inside the editor as well. You also have the ability to add new features or content packs as they become available. So you can go ahead and click on that, and you can see you can add various blueprint templates, C++ versions of those templates, as well as content packs. Say, for instance, you didn't have starter content enabled in your project and wanted to add it. You could do that through the Add New button as well. The other thing that you can do is create new folders. So this allows you a way to manage your content as you see fit. So if I wanted to create a new UI folder, I could click the Add New and add a folder and just call it UI and store all my UI stuff inside this folder. Let's see. And you also have the ability to add new C++ classes here as well if you're into C++ programming. Directly to the right of the New button, we have the Import button, which we kind of talked about. Again, just press this button and you'll receive a dialog prompting you to import your content, whatever that content may be. And then next to that, we have a Save All button. So if I were to create a new material, for instance, you can see the new material. This is a blank material, but you can see there's a little asterisk in the left-hand corner, bottom left-hand corner. This indicates that my asset has not been saved. If I were to close this project, I would lose this asset that I created. So you always want to make sure that you save all of your content periodically to make sure that those assets are saved. Here we have the opportunity to save the level, save the material that we just created, check which ones we want to save, etc. So I'll just save them all so that we have them saved. Below that, we have a Show or Hide Sources panel. This is the Sources panel here. This directory structure is the Sources panel. So we can click this button and hide it or show it. To the right of that, we have a Search Folders search bar. It's a traditional search bar. If I wanted to find my Blueprints folder, I could just type in Blueprints, and there you see it starts to highlight the Blueprints folder. Our project is really small right now, so we don't have a lot of folders in here, but if you had tons of folders and you wanted to find something, you could use the Search Folders search box to find the folder that you're looking for. And below that is our directory structure of our Sources panel. We can click on any of these to populate the window to the right, which is our Assets window, which we'll talk about in a moment. But you can click on any of these folders to populate the Asset window to the right. You can see you can expand and minimize subfolders in here as well for organization purposes, as well as if you right-click in an empty space in here, let's go in here. So if you right-click in here, you have some context actions as well. You can add a new folder here. You can create assets, again, just as if you click the Add New button. You can show that folder inside Explorer on your disk, which is very helpful to browsing to your project location. Rename folders, set color, all these are pretty much self-explanatory. Set color, changing the color of your folder structure to help you easily identify certain folders. The rest, like I said, are pretty much self-explanatory. We'll skip these down here, Control connect to source control. That's something that if you are into a larger team with multiple people and using source control, you could use this option to connect and disconnect from source control. But again, for some of these options, you may want to look up some of the documentation. It's a little bit outside the scope of this video, so just know that they're there. Okay, to the right, let's take a look at the asset window. At the upper left-hand corner of the asset window, we have forward and back buttons. This is similar to any web browser. So for example, if we were in the starter content and blueprints folder, we could click the back button to go back. We could click forward to go forward. It's essentially just navigating through our previous steps. To the right of that, we have a choose path folder. This is basically the same thing as the sources panel. Remember, we said that we can hide the sources panel. So if you want to hide it and only show it when you need it, you can click the choose path panel or choose path button from here. And it functions the same as the sources panel. I can expand and jump to whatever folder I want. So let's re-enable that. To the right of that, we have traditional breadcrumbs. You can click on any of these to return to a spot in the breadcrumb list. So for example, I go into blueprints and assets. I can click starter content to jump all the way back up to that. Or I can click the arrows in between and jump to a direct folder, a subfolder within the main folder here. Now to the very far right, we have this little lock icon, not a like icon, a lock icon. And this lock icon comes in handy quite often, actually, if you have, especially if you have multiple monitors. What it allows you to do is lock the content browser to this particular window. So say, for example, we have this level here, and say we had a lot of floor tiles here that we were putting a bunch of materials on, and we wanted to have not only our materials displayed, but we want to have static meshes displayed too, so that we can create different types of floors or something. We could lock the content browser to this particular window so that we can always just drag and drop shapes in really easy, like so. But say we wanted to add materials as well. So if I click on this, there's an option in the details panel to browse to a particular material. And say we wanted to add this material to all of our shapes as well. We can click this little magnifying glass, and because our content browser is locked, it will pop up a brand new content browser with only materials. Now I say why this becomes handy if you have multiple monitors is that you could have one content browser just for materials on a separate monitor, another content browser just for static meshes. So you can quickly place static meshes, then quickly place materials on them by having multiple content browsers up at once. And speaking of which, if we go to the window option under content browser, you can see you can have up to 4 different content browsers active at once. And that could be for one for materials, one for static meshes, one for particles, one for sounds, etc. And allow you to quickly browse to each of your respective content to get it into your level relatively quickly. So I'm going to uncheck that actually, and let's go back to the root here. And let's continue. Below the top toolbar here, we have an option for filters. This is a very, very useful tool. Let's go to the main, make sure we're on the main. The filters option, if I click it, you'll see you have a bunch of different checkboxes that we can use to filter our content browser by. So if I want to see just materials in the content browser, I can click this material checkbox, and boom, it's all materials in all of their subfolders just presented in the content in the asset window of the content browser. We could also add multiple filters. So if I wanted to see materials and static meshes, I can click another checkbox. And now we have all of our materials and all of our static meshes available, presented to us in the content browser. Below the filters, we can toggle the currently displayed filters just by clicking on them. So now we only show static meshes. Now we only show materials. You can right-click on them and remove or enable them, or disable all filters or remove all filters as well. So let's just remove all filters now that we've explained how filters work. To the right of that, we have the search bar, which is very similar to the search bar in the sources panel. Just type in what it is you're looking for. So if I'm looking for a brick, anything to do with bricks, here's all the materials and textures that have the name brick in it. Or for example, fire. Now we have a blueprint that has the name fire in it. We have audio, we have particle effects, just by typing in the name here. So I'm going to close that. And inside here, as we mentioned, is our asset viewer. Simply double click on a folder and it will open up all the assets contained within that folder. So let's go to the materials folder excuse. If you look all the way down on the lower left-hand corner, there is a display of all of the all of the assets currently in the selected folder. So we have 43 materials in this folder, which is useful if you want to know how many assets are in a particular folder. Directly across to the right of that, we have some view options. So let's go ahead and click that. And the view options, what they do is allow you to change the way that the content browser is presented to you. You can see by default we are set to tiles, which are our tiles here. You can change that to a list. You can also change that to columns if you'd prefer. And the thing about columns is you'll get additional information presented to you inside the content browser based on the type of objects that you're looking at. So for example, we're looking at static meshes now. You can see we're getting information about the triangles and vertices, UV channels and materials and things like that. If we were looking at blueprints, for example, we're getting additional information about blueprints. Or if we were looking at materials, you could see now we're getting blend modes and shading models and things of that nature. Again, this is based on the columns view. So let's go back to tiles really quickly. You can also see that we have some options for folders. So let's jump all the way back out to the main folder here, the root folder, and click the view options again. Currently we are set to show folders. However, if we uncheck this, you can see we're just presented with all the assets that we have in our project without folders. In the asset view, you can see in the sources panel, we still have our folder structure, and we can still filter what is displayed by using the sources panel. But in our asset view, the subfolders are gone, and all you see are your assets. So I'm going to click that again. We have a couple options that are off by default. We have developers folder, plugin content, engine content, and collections. These are off by default. You can check them to enable them if you'd like to kind of see what they do. But they're off by default to prevent you from accidentally deleting some stuff. For example, the show engine content. This is all the content that is needed for the editor itself to be working. So probably don't want to go in here and delete stuff, which is why it's off by default. But you can see now we have an engine content folder because we enabled it. Again, this is just by checking the checkboxes and allowing those to be shown. So let's go back to the materials folder. I did want to show one more nifty thing about the view options. We do have the option to, of course, scale the size of the thumbnails that you're presented with by tweaking this little slider here. But we also have a thumbnail editing mode. So if you go ahead and check that, you could see that we have now the ability to edit our thumbnails in real time. So for example, we have this brick material here. We can change what this material is applied to. So for example, maybe we wanted to have an actual block to give us a better view of our material on a surface that would be used in game. That's just done by clicking the little icon up here. We can change it to a plane, a cylinder, etc. And we can use the right mouse button to zoom in and out and left mouse button to tumble around the object. We could also go down, for example, if we had, let's go to our props folder, our static meshes. We could click on that and rotate it around to get a better view of our static mesh. And once we're done, we could just click done editing. You can see it has the asterisk to say that it hasn't been saved. We could save it and it will save our new thumbnails as well. Let's jump back to materials really quickly. There's one more thing that we wanted to show. Let's see if it's going to be visible here. Let's bump this up just a little bit. We do have the option for real-time thumbnails. So if we click that, I don't know how visible this is going to be on video. But what this allows you to do is preview elements in real time on the thumbnail. So for example, if we had some kind of panning material or some kind of, there we go, just took a second to load it up. You can see that the water is actually moving, and this is a perfect time to illustrate the thumbnail editing. Let's actually click this and change this. Now you can see that we have our water actually previewed in real time. So if you had any kind of animation, like a paper 2D animation. You can enable real-time thumbnails to see those presented in the thumbnail in real time. And I think that's about it for the content browser. I know it was a lot to digest, but once you get the hang of it, there are some options that can be set to help you navigate the content browser a little bit easier. And again, the main points that you may want to take away from this is that the content browser is used for managing all of your assets that are included with your project, materials, particle effects, static meshes, etc. And they can easily just be dragged and dropped into your levels. Here's another table. And you can also double click on an asset to open it up in its own sub-editor. And you can also import your own content by clicking the import button or using the auto import method that we discussed. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and turn into the next video.